right, as you know, we are talking about the democratic state of Africa, and I am your host, Sia Matilda Banda. Today, we're discussing about sustainable development, education and all. Well, this round, we're going to talk about education in particular. What should Africa be doing? Are we taking our STEM, our courses seriously so that we are in tight competition, if not, even overpowering the countries that are ahead of us? Are we looking at education as far as the classroom? Are we looking at tertiary education? Are we looking at bringing up and developing skills and talents that will put us at par with the developing world? And to have this conversation, I have with me right here
Abu Hassan Askia, and I am the founder, CEO of the 21st Century African Youth Movement, an organization that creates jobs and employment for youth in Africa and focus purely on reversing the social and economic marginalization of Africa. And I also have a for-profit business, which is a consulting group, Kiama Group Consulting, and I do a lot of things in the business sector of that area, because combining the business talent as well as bringing together youths to understand how to translate their ideas into entrepreneurial skills is one of the areas of interest for me.
Thank you very much. And I also have with me
I'm the National Youth President of the United African Congress. Also here at the University of Maryland, Mechanical Engineering. I was a teaching assistant also in Ghana at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Was the first to design and build cars in West Africa. I have represented Ghana and West Africa in 2 different car design competitions. My area of specialty is design, artificial intelligence, and robotics.
Hello everyone, hello viewers. My name is Martin Tale. I'm a founder of the Gamundi Foundation. We founded the Gamundi Foundation to do consulting in marketing and business project management, as well as distribution social justice to underprivileged communities. We've been doing this so many times for a long time to Zambia. And part of that is social distribution. I'm interested in this topic because we've been trying to support and contribute to education system in Zambia. So I think I'll enjoy the topic.
All right, let's make it roll. And Matthews is from Zambia, Sadiq Ghana, and of course Sierra Leone, Askia. Let's make it roll. What should Africa be doing?
Well, first and foremost, one of the reasons why Africa seems to be socially and economically marginalized is our approach to education. And anytime you want to address an issue, look at it first from its historical perspective. Determine the patterns that have led to the situation. And then, out of that, you are able to deduce what should be the next step forward. If you have a clear understanding, you know that until the invention of the printing press, it will take probably a century before you hear about a discovery. Then the printing press came in, and then knowledge started to spread around. Well, what was basically happening was that there was an accumulation of practical knowledge. Up to the end of the 20th century, this practical accumulation of knowledge has helped us a lot in terms of becoming specialized in some rote learning mentality, right? But then the 21st century has opened doors of opportunity, especially in technology. My brother is talking about a very strategic and significant area. And talking from the Africa perspective, I can feel something moving in my body towards that. So what Africa needs now is to identify, and I was looking at this area because one of the reasons why I set up the 21st Century African Youth Movement is actually to approach things from that perspective, right? There are 5 minds of the future. And everything we have spoken here today, actually when you look at those 5 minds that we need to move Africa forward, you are going to recognize that number one, each and every one of us, you need to have what they call a career. You need to understand, you have to have a subject matter. You have to be disciplined in something, right? Robotics, artificial intelligence, that is a discipline. You have to have it. It is necessary. It is absolutely recommended that each child that will be raised in Africa today should have a discipline. But it should not stop there. Why? Because creativity is also another important aspect of things. Because it is out of creativity you have the ability to look at. Now, if you have all of these skills, in order for you to be able to take things and put it together, you're going to need creativity. I was giving somebody an example. Somebody wanted me to develop a website. I don't build website myself, but I know how to bring everything together to give you, if somebody's building a $20,000 website, then I know I can go online and take all the plugins that are operating on that website and tell my web developer, I need all of these plugins and I need them to work this way for me so that they can produce this result, right? So instead of spending $20,000, you can spend $1,000, $1,500. You still get the same result. Your thing is performing, okay? That creative mind is essential. Then, the next thing that we need to understand, and I know that people are coming to talk about infrastructure. The next thing we need to understand is, first and foremost, is that information, we have now become so overwhelmed with information that you don't need to sit down again in the traditional classroom. Some people don't even learn that way, you get me? I got my master's doing everything online. Right? I'm doing my MBA online. And you know what? I have access to all the information, the books they prescribe, I get them online. But the information is so overwhelming. So what kind of mind do I need to be able to go through this? I need a mind that can synthesize. You need a sieve, because the information is so much. You only need the information that will make you give the right information that you need. Right now, you don't need all of this because you don't want to be overwhelmed. And then, we are talking about something here also. We need to be able to recognize that we all come from different areas. Even in Africa, we are not a homogeneous entity. So much so that the practices in Sierra Leone may be frowned upon, probably in places like Botswana. If I go to the river and I want to cross to the other end, there is a man sitting down there, he's not going to charge me, but I'm going to give him what they call a kola nut. If I go to the town and I want to talk to the chief, I come with a present. Now, in the Western world, they will look at it as bribery. But in my tradition, it's not bribery. Because what the present does is that it allows the chief to give you a place to sit down, and they give you something to welcome you. So there is a reciprocity. So learning to respect other cultures is going to be very fundamental. And so we have to recognize that, number one, education is vital. Number two, that we are not going to follow the old model of the 20th century. And that, number three, nations are going to invest a greater part of their budget in actually developing this intelligentsia. Sierra Leone is spending 22% now of its budget on education. My brother was talking about basic education. That is a fundamental goal. So what do we need? We need a nation that is going to recognize that before we can reverse our social and economic marginalization right now, we need to expose the mind of the people. And that mind should not be limited to only memorialization. It is going to need a creative mind, right? It's going to need a creative mind. Part of what my organization did was to tell the stories of Africa through art. And I need to also just point it before I pass it to art, right? The Sierra Leone Civil War. We lived in Madison at the time, and there was nothing in the newspaper about it. What I did was, because I have a background in art, I went back to Sierra Leone, collected a whole lot of art, came and approached the Wisconsin Humanities Council, which is part of the National Endowment for the Humanities. And I pitched my concept to them to tell the story of the Sierra Leone Civil War through art. And immediately, the story was on the front page of the largest newspaper. right? Critical, but it is a strategic move.
All right,
So-
Sadiq, so what do you think?
Thank you very much. When it comes to education, I think it's a fundamental of all societies. No society will progress without education, but meaningful education. Africa has gone through what it's been through and is going through now because our system of education has always been theoretical. The colonizers, and again, it has to come back to them, but when they were leaving, the curriculum they left behind is a curriculum that crunches on information. So the students are forced to memorize a lot of information, but they are not able to translate that into practice. And in that disconnect, you have a whole lot of people graduating from universities and colleges, but you put them in the workforce and they cannot be creative enough. Not that they are not creative, they cannot be creative enough to actually translate the theory into practice. At the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana, when we were approached about a car design, we took some time, 3 of us, we decided that we would do it. A professor told us, you can't. This is someone who teaches you, telling you you can't. I told him I was going to make sure we do it and drive it. And we did. 3 months. It took us 3 months to do the design from conceptual level all the way through production. But we did it. Today, those guys are sitting in the university as a symbol of what they call hope for subsequent students. When you design a curriculum, you have to design it in such a way that if you're teaching students ratio, you can also teach them that ratio could be used in designing and manufacturing a gearbox. How? Gears operate on ratio. You have a smaller gear attached to a bigger gear. If the smaller gear is running the bigger gear, the smaller one would have to rotate so many times before the bigger one rotates one revolution. This is ratio. But you have to learn, teach the students that this is how it is done in practice. A whole lot of people go through education in Africa not even seeing how practical what they are studying is. The very moment you begin to do this, then you are giving the student the opportunity to also think, oh, okay, if that is how it's happened, then I could actually combine this with that and come up with something new. And that is how the accumulation of information has helped the Western and Far Eastern countries to actually develop. You have information, someone has built something, there's a pattern, he was able to do so much. Research funding is available for you to also research into what the previous what inventor did, and then improve upon it. And as you are accumulating improvement gradually, you have a computer that is approaching quantum level processing. So we need to have this synergy of theory and practice in our institutions. Before I pass the mic, there's another thing. As you were talking, the concept of artificial intelligence. It's not too complicated. It's taken us a long time to get here, but we are here. What is it? Algorithms. Everything you do, if you look at the human being or any being, everything that it does is based off of algorithms. The way I interact with you is a series of commands and logic in me. That tells me, do this, don't do that. If this is that, do this. If this is then, do that. So you are going to be thinking, how do I autonomize a process? You go back and ask yourself, how do you do it? You create this, you do that, you do this, you do this, and now you tell the machine in algorithmic language, I want you to take these steps. If this happens, then switch to this. If that does not happen, then do this. So eventually, you are creating a system that can function on its own without you, because you have taken how you would otherwise have done it and given it to the machine to do.
And you're saying that, and Matthew's going to talk about this, I'm sure, that it's not just theoretical education, but we all have inside of us the natural aptitude to be creative, and we all have our natural talents and skills if they are put to work in a practical sense. Not that we don't need a theoretical education, but it will help us to move forward in Africa as a whole. Matthew?
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic for me. Let me just look back and see education, which is coming under soft infrastructure. Because there are two types of infrastructure. There is hard and soft. So this education is coming under soft. Soft is education. This is where we have to look at our curriculum, especially in our schools, from secondary, colleges, up to infinity. Because we have seen that most of the things that are happening in Africa is we study to pass an exam. We don't study to know things, and so that we can use these things outside there in our everyday life. So the curriculum in our African context should change such that 90% of what we are doing in class should be practical. Maybe that's too high. Maybe 75%. Then 25% that's the one that we can spend on learning the theories. Because the theory has killed a lot of intelligent people. Most of the people who are educated, they are educated because they've studied and memorized things. They are not able to turn the theories into practical. So I would advise those who are listening to this that we have to reverse our way of doing things. The reason why we can't even tap into our own resources in Zambia, for example, we brag about our resources, our engineering and mining, but we can't even get out of whatever we have to make something tangible. Why? Because our education system has just taught us theories, no practical. I would advise maybe if our education system is encouraging the 75% that I've mentioned, that most of the people like doing engineering, or those who are in science or in mathematics, they should be able to be out there, do the actual work, other than every day from January to December, they're just theorizing things. There should be a time where most of the time you're spending time to do what you're going to do when you finish your school. I think that would be...
So is it fair then for somebody who has the cognitive memory that they can cog, as we used to say in school, they can cog and then go to class and sit their exams and they can make it. But there are others who don't have that advantage, but they are good, for instance, in soccer, or they're good at, hand skills and all of that. Is it fair then? Or how do we make the bridge between those two? What countries, let me also add this, what countries are moving ahead in this sphere in Africa?
I wouldn't attempt to answer the second question, but the first one, if you judge a fish by how fast or how good it can climb a tree, you are doing it an injustice. Not everyone should be put in the same class to be judged by the same criteria. But Education is not just reading. Education is learning. My mother has not been in school one single day, but I've learned almost literally everything I know in life from her. It's education. Now, Africans don't lack talent. They don't lack the ability to be creative and innovative. I learned how to make charcoal from someone who has never been to school. I learned how to build cars with milk tins as a child from people who have never been to school. But they were the most creative people ever. Now, the failure as a society is our disregard for those talents and allowing them to go unnoticed.
Is it disregard of talents or is it lack of opportunity?
The disregard is what is creating the lack.
And I just want to add to that, and I'm going to start actually here. You see how you have taken your ability to communicate, to read, to understand, and to put together something like this. You see how you have leveraged that talent with what is happening here now.
Great minds.
This has the potential. What I see here is probably, I don't know if other people are seeing, but what I see from here is something that has the capacity of translating into millions if it is leveraged accordingly. Yes. Because there is something here, yes. Right? Similarly, I was talking to a kid who just graduated from high school, and he had all the things to go to VSU to study art, but he deliberately chose to go to the community college. And I was asking them why. He said, well, I'm going first to take care of all this elective because I want to focus on that. He said, and I want to make some money. I said, how are you making money? And then he showed me all his artwork and where he sells his digital artwork. And he is already making money while he's already there. He just came in, right? He already knew that, yes, I'm going to study art. Well, you could not have correlated it to that. Now, what happens when we are growing up in places like Sierra Leone, people are in music? What do we? Society was rejecting them. Say they smoke marijuana, they are not serious and everything, right? But then you come.
Even I used to sing in the band so well,
so you could have been
and everybody. I have CDs out even now, but I was frowned upon, like, oh my God.
That's right. Socially, it was treated as a socially unacceptable thing.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted me to go study history because that was what everybody, even my teachers. But then I have just a passion for art and everything. And people didn't understand what I wanted to do, visual art, what I wanted to understand art. Because within me, it was not just about drawing again, because there was a Ghanaian guy in our community called Ashi Kobina. Ashi Kobina, when they elect paramount chiefs, these paramount chiefs have musicians that were singing. Ashi will paint the portrait of these chiefs. You can see a correlation between the happiness in the inner part of that man.
And
for everybody, because Ashi Kobina was always appearing like he was drunk, and they don't understand him, but Ashi Kobina influenced a young generation of us. And so we who wanted to do art, we are discouraged right
here. We are talking about correlation.
Yeah, let me just round it up where I am, right? So, to me, I wanted to change perspective about art. Because if you understand, before the sciences, Leonardo da Vinci, he was an artist, and then a scientist. You can put those two things together, right? We frown on music, but today, when we hear people like Michael Jackson and others, right, we know it has money, right? You can leverage that to entrepreneurship. So what we need to be able to do is to recognize that any talent has value. Yes. It doesn't matter. Yes. There is a kid, if some of you who are going to Sierra Leone, he is always there by Moyamba Junction. He has this something we call it bata or drum. Right? He's always beating, but he does it so beautifully. He's like a griot. He can narrate, if you understand the language in which he's singing, sometimes he tries to blend it with Creole. You know this kid has a talent. Now, he's been surviving about it. Every talent has value.
I love that.
Every talent has value. It doesn't matter what it is, it has value. It is just waiting for a moment for somebody to invest in it.
All right. Open, it's open, yes, Jean-Paul?
Yes, I think this is awesome. In terms of education,
And sorry, before you, we have some questions online too.
Yeah, but just wait.
Huh? Yeah, go ahead.
yes. So I think, from what I've heard, I'm really, really, really excited about this. Every talent has values. Right? Every year in Africa, we have between 7 and 10 million youth entering the labor force. There's no work. The year 2100, the population of Africa is going to be 40% of the world population. We need to train those generations. Those generations will be the one, because the largest amount of youth is in Africa. And when you're looking at the youth, in terms of training, there's a range of time that you have to train somebody. Doesn't mean that when you're 50 you cannot learn, but when that brain is developing, that's when you want to feed it with the right thing so that they will be the designers of tomorrow. Okay? So the brain works. I think the key thing here is to understand how the brain works. And I like what I've heard about the practical training, the hands-on. Yeah. And this is what had made the West move so fast, is because of the hands-on. When you touch something and you're trying to fix or resolve a problem, when you go away from trying to fix it or you go to sleep, your brain still continues to work. And this is a way even like Einstein find the one formula he was actually struggling with, is he moved away and went to work with one of his friends that was a mathematician, a physicist. And then as they were talking, the answer came because of the hands-on.
Yeah.
But you also have to go back into the education that we inherited. It was inherited that way for a reason, so that we're constant consumers of what comes from the West. But the population in those Western countries, in terms of age, is diminishing. So we are actually coming at a stage where if we do not train our youth or our people right in the right way, we're going to miss on the big opportunity.
That's right. Anybody else? Yes.
To piggyback on what you just said, the population of Africa is increasing, the workforce is reducing, and pretty soon we're going to be in a world where hard labor is going to diminish because of artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence, the way it is moving, has the capacity of replacing all of the doctors we have. Watson can diagnose cancer almost 95% accurate, when a trained doctor, the best of them, can barely go 50%. Now, music, EMI, experiment in musical intelligence, is able to produce classical music that could not be distinguished from Beethoven, Mozart, or any of the classical masters. This is the world you're moving into. Self-driving vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
Drivers, you're going to be replaced by autonomous vehicles. What else? Give me a job that humans do. And I can tell you in a couple of years, AIs are going to take over. So as we are planning the future of Africa and giving a strategy as to what needs to be done now, tomorrow, and the next, we also have to look at the projection of the order of things and how it's going to affect whoever we're training today. Because by tomorrow, what we are training people to do today will be done by something else. So, in our thinking, how do we leapfrog?
Yeah.
We need to create that time lapse where we can cut through to the other side and be able to be productive and relevant.
Starting with the youth.
Starting with the youth.
Evans?
All right, talking about education, and I know that we're looking at wealth infrastructure, and this is quite a very broad topic,
Yes.
especially as Africans. We need to understand who we are, where we are coming from, where we are today, and where we are going. Because, take for example, when you talk about education, education in Africa, it has to be divided in phases. We've got town education, we've got the rural education. And you find that when we are developing our curriculum in Africa, we don't develop curriculum, but we adopt curriculums, which we impose on our children. And we want to, and we set a benchmark to say for you to pass to go to grade 7, you need to have 800. But they forget to look at the child in the village who doesn't have access to electricity,
Yes.
who doesn't have access to computers, which is now infrastructure. And you set the same standards and say for you to pass. So we are doing injustice to our own children, to our own generation. At the same time, our books and our curriculum, as African, we need to come to a point when we need to write our own books, that which we will teach our children. Because we cannot be given a Lambert on Abbott. I remember when I was in grades, where we had to memorize a book,
Yes.
memorize the formulas for us to pass. And if your memory is not good enough to memorize, you are doomed to fail. So what our curriculum needs to do, we have to strategize how do we teach our children how to think than how to memorize. How do we teach them critical thinking? How do we teach them to become innovative and identify their talents when they're still young? Than just setting up their own standard, this is our standard, and that's where we are failing. For some of us, I would say maybe we are privileged even to be in the US, privileged to go to some of the schools, but it's not the same as the children in the rural villages. So we need to look at education and infrastructure. I'll give you, for an example, there's one province in Zambia called Mchinga province. It's a new province that was demarcated in 2011. That province, it has about around 829 schools. Out of, and the population of about 711,000. And of that population, which is, you find that they've got only one university, one trade school, 90 secondary schools, and about 826 primary schools, of which to them, electricity is a challenge. So those kids cannot even study and they can't even study at night. And if we have one university and one trade school with 800, it means we have got a lot of work that we have to do. So even in our planning policy, but if you go to Lusaka, there are a lot of schools. If you go to the Copperbelt, there are a lot of schools. So we need to look at how do we develop our schools equally and equitably based on the community's needs. And based on their advantage, not just setting up the standard, this is the standard, that's where we're getting it wrong. But that gives us an opportunity to develop our country.
Thank you so very much. Anybody else in the audience? And then we will come back and we'll have closing remarks. 1 minute.
In our curriculum, let don't forget cultural education, moral education, which somebody was talking about values. Those are the way we move our values, indoctrinate our values into our kids. Because most of the time in Africa, when you behave like an African, you say, oh, he's not civilized because he behaves like an African. They want you to behave like a Western guy. Definitely, I think each and every child deserves to have a basic education. That ABCD up to like 12th grade, you're supposed to have that. At that time, you should have mechanism to detect what are the different talents of these kids and move them into those areas. So you don't like it's like one size fits all. Hey, you have to be an engineer, you have to be this. It is not possible. Somebody might be an artist, somebody might be a soccer player. Because one of our biggest problems we discuss here today is the level of education. When you say somebody staying in power for a very long time, you know why? Because he's went to the village and tell his people, I'm your man, I'm from your tribe. You know why? That guy don't know better, because he doesn't really kind of crazy. Recently I went to Sierra Leone, I met with my nephews that I went to for the college. He's supporting NGC, I'm supporting the SLP. And this gentleman, he was arguing with me, making points. If that person go to college, when he sees me, he will not even sit down, he will still sit down outside. But now because he's open, he can talk to me about values of the country, about really, he can reason beyond just me telling him to go vote for somebody.
For somebody, yeah.
Thank you.
That's right. Okay.
Thank you so much. Education in Africa is a scam. It has affected even those people that are called educators.
Say that again. It's a scam?
It has affected even those people who are teachers in schools,
Okay.
and so are the pupils. It is designed in such a way that we produce a job seeker other than a critical thinker.
Wow.
And an average parent in Africa will be saying, go to school so that you can get a job tomorrow. We have people today that graduate as engineers from universities, but very few, almost none, are inventors. And you find that these graduates we are getting from schools, when they are put in industry, many of them from university are failing to deliver. And so that raises the question in terms of the education system we're having. And I even said here, to speak of my country, Zambia, you find that in the last 5 years, there have been a lot of changes depending on who wants to support the education system. They'll just impose on some curriculum and then they'll just get it and begin to teach that. So we need to look at it critically and also to avoid a situation where we have people who are educated but not learned. Very different from, where we are in Europe. So there is need to, because even the issue of talent, that will only come in when we begin to produce critical thinkers, to begin to think around a particular talent.
Thank you very much. So let's take it back to the panel. In 1 minute, please, 1 minute each, and then we'll wrap up that.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to start where you ended, Mr. Ban. And when you talk about, let's don't forget about the culture, let's don't forget about the rest. First, one of the 5 minds of the future. If you don't want, when artificial intelligence take over what you are capable of doing, if you don't want to be left outside in the cold, you have to have a respectful mind, which means you're not only going to value what good things your community wants you to adhere to, but you're also going to respect the other values in other communities that are not like you and don't think like you. So that's going to be very important. So that's one critical mind of the future that is going to be helpful. And Africa already had this. All we need to do is to go back. Like in Ghana, they have it called sarcophagus. Look back. You know, if you read F.K. Bois, now we read some books by African authors like F.K. Bois, even though he was writing on European history, but he was given in an African bent. If you study literature, you study literature in Africa, something like that, right? That's part of the thing. But what I want to end up with here is what I said earlier on. There is value in every talent. And if you want to be helpful to society, because the essence of education is to develop yourself so that you in turn can go and develop your community. If you can go back to your community and see a child that have done a beautiful painting, and you know by giving that child $50 you're not going to lose anything, show that child how valuable what they have done. In the Second World War, when this country was in depression, you know what FDR did? He commissioned all artists. They paint and they gather. And that's how America started what they call its visual diplomacy. You want to tell us we don't have capable and progressive artists in Africa? How many of our embassies are carrying the photos, paintings by original African artists? You can create a creative industry. Creativity is a creative industry. You can create it, and that is part of the minds of the future. Right? So before artificial intelligence comes, because artificial intelligence is going to be capable of painting. I see these kids now doing digital art. It is amazing. So I just want to end there and say, let us make sure that every talent is valued. Thank you.
And then we identify those talents and add values to them. Yes. Last word, Matthews?
Yeah, there's one interesting thing I've learned through my years of being here. I do volunteer every year as a principal for the day. So in those schools where I go, I found that the way they do things is completely different from the way we do, like elementary school or high school, whatever it is. I've found that in our African way of teaching, you find you can have 20 pupils in class. The teacher will continue teaching. It doesn't matter whether everyone is listening or 2 people are listening. They will continue to teach and finish their curriculum and whatever it is. The year ends. But I've learned something here that can be contributed to the system back in Africa, where you can have a class of 20 pupils and then there's a main teacher. Let's say they are teaching mathematics in that particular time. So you have a teacher in front who is the main owner of the class. Then they will have like 3 or 4 other teachers within the same space and time, where they've identified that, oh, those 3 there, they are slow learners, those are like, so they can't catch up at the same time with other people who are fast learners. So they've designed a situation where everybody at the end of the day, they have to be at the same level. But that doesn't happen when you are behind, back home you are behind. You never catch up. So we have also to identify such kind of things like that. Then the other thing is identifying talent or passion as we are bringing up our families, children. I heard you are a singer, of which somebody came and stepped on your singing. Yeah, because when you have children growing, let's not disable our children where we see that they are growing, they like. You identify certain things that children like.
Yes.
Never ever stop them doing what they like, because you never know that is the one that they will come and develop and be good in that and make their life out of it.
Identify the values. Last word, Sadiq. 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Education. Key to everything in society. Let me piggyback on what you said. There's a curriculum called A World in Motion. You can all look it up. A World in Motion was developed by the Society of Automotive Engineers. I founded the West African chapter of the society. And when I came for a car design competition in 2005, I spoke to the coordinator of A World in Motion in Detroit. Said, I love this curriculum. Can you please give it to me so I can take it back with me to Africa. She told me, with due respect, that Africans do not qualify for it. So I took my time, went to New York, started teaching in a school there, and requested for the package, and they gave it to me, the entire package. This is what Africa was missing. It was the missing piece. A World in Motion takes mathematics, social studies, language arts, physics, chemistry, biology, combines them in a way that is actually translating the theory to practice. The example I gave about ratio is actually a model in A World in Motion. So you take ratio and then you build a car at grade 2, grade 3, you are developing gliders. They teach you that air pressure can be used as a propeller for a vehicle. Yes, they take a balloon, they allow you to inflate the balloon, you attach the balloon to a glider, and then immediately you release the end of the balloon. The exit pressure of the balloon is propelling the glider in the opposite direction. Physics. But a grade 1 student is doing this. It does something in grade 2. Yeah. It does something in grade 3. All the way to grade 12. So by the time the kid is going into university, he is innovative enough to piece all that together and develop something new. And if this is how far we have come in the United States, with even a curriculum like that in the background, imagine where we would be on the continent of Africa if we adopt that. Thank you very much.
I'm sure that we will adopt that in the continent of Africa forward our way forward. It's been very, very good listening to our panelists from tonight as they talk about education in the presence of Matthew Butali from Zambia, Sadiq Abubakar, Ghana, and of course Abu Hassan Koroma Askia from Sierra Leone.